uh, on earth during the millennial reign. Yeah, all of the Christians and those that were died before and those that were that went through the millennium or went through the tribulation. Those are all going to be there. And I apologize if anyone was watching last week on YouTube or Facebook on this. My mic, the battery went dead, so about halfway through there's no sound to it. So anyway, but it is what it is. All right. Now we're going to get into the Great White Throne Judgment. Has everybody heard of the Great White Throne Judgment before? Okay. What are some of the things that you've heard, or do you think the White Throne Judgment, Great White Throne Judgment is? Okay. People get sent to hell. Okay.
I figure it's where it says your new home is there, and your new home is there.
Okay. All right.
Separated by the end.
Okay. Well, hopefully by the time we get done with this, you get a little bit better idea of what the Great White Throne Judgment is. I've heard a lot of teachers and preachers preach about this. They've changed over the years, but I've heard a lot of them preach about it. Is that everybody is going to go through the Great White Throne Judgment? Okay, and we're going to see that that's not exactly true. All right. Let's start with verse number 4 in Revelation chapter 20. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus.
Hello, I'm Billy Stewart, Assistant Pastor here at Solid Rock Tabernacle. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to come join us personally in one of our exciting Spirit-filled services. Our Sunday school begins at 9 a.m. Our Sunday morning worship is at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening worship is at 6 p.m. And we have an exciting Wednesday evening Bible study that begins at 7 p.m. Hey, we'll save a seat for you. And now, let's join our service already in progress.
paved the way for man to be resurrected. Yes.
When Jesus was still alive, didn't he raise Lazarus from the dead?
Yes.
But wouldn't that be technically resurrection?
Okay. That's. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit trail, but as far as raising Lazarus from the dead, there's different theological beliefs on that. Yes, Lazarus was dead, but Lazarus had to die, but Lazarus was just there. Jesus allowed him to die so that the Son of God could be glorified, that God could be glorified. He said that. He knew that Lazarus was going to die. So when he went to see Lazarus in the grave, he already knew what he was going to do. He already knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. So Lazarus dying served a purpose. All right?
Lazarus' spirit wasn't ever being presented to Hades. It was right there.
Yeah, Lazarus never his when we die, our spirit go somewhere. Okay, Lazarus was there. His body was dead, but his spirit, his soul, was still with the body. It didn't move on because Jesus knew that he was going to raise him from the dead. So there wasn't any use in that soul going or the spirit going anywhere else. Okay, there's different beliefs on that, and we're getting off on the rabbit trail here again. And I did.
That's when Lazarus, was it Lazarus' sister or what, that told Jesus if he'd been there, Lazarus wouldn't have died.
Yeah. But Jesus deliberately stayed. Right. But Jesus deliberately stayed gone until he was raised. Now, as far as your question on that, are we actually, does our soul go on immediately or does it wait on that? There's two different theologies on that. One of them is soul sleep and the other one is present with Christ. I did a series on that not too long ago, on soul sleep and present with Christ. Yes. Soul sleep is when the body dies, the soul goes into a state of hibernation, sort of. Okay? And
Hello, I'm Billy Stewart, Assistant Pastor here at Solid Rock Tabernacle. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to come join us personally in one of our exciting Spirit-filled services. Our Sunday school begins at 9. Our Sunday morning worship is at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening worship is at 6 p.m. And we have an exciting Wednesday evening Bible study that begins at 7 p.m. Hey, we'll save a seat for you. And now, let's join our service already in progress.
Well, we're going to look at the different levels of hell on this. Purgatory is a Catholic belief that is a purification process before being allowed into heaven. Okay. There's a few other Protestant denominations that kind of believe, but it's predominantly a Catholic belief. Okay. Okay. All right. The purification, of course, there again. All right. In Roman Catholicism, there are stages of sin. You have mortal sin, you have venial sin. Okay? Mortal sin is sin that's just it. That's bad. That's, there's not really any forgiveness for mortal sin. Okay? Venial sin, that is sin that you can be forgiven. If you die with mortal sin, you're going to hell. That's just, all right? You die with venial sin. Venial sin, if you have venial sin when you die, you go to purgatory to be purged of that sin. And then people can pray you out of purgatory and everything else, okay? That's a Catholic belief. That's primarily a Catholic belief, yes. Okay? So, the second stage of the first resurrection is the resurrection of the dead in Christ, the rapture. That's the second stage of the resurrection. All right? That's the rapture. The third stage is the resurrection of the martyrs at the end of tribulation. These are going to be the ones that are killed during the tribulation. Remember, there's going to be those that are beheaded. There's going to be those that have their heads cut off. There's going to be those people, when those people die, their bodies are going to be resurrected again. Okay? That's at the end of the tribulation period is when they are resurrected. That's the third part of it. All right? During this time, when all of these happen, the Old Testament saints will also be raised. All right? The Old Testament saints, Ezekiel, Obadiah, Isaiah, some of all these are going to be raised as well. Okay? Their bodies are going to be raised with it. Okay? Now the rest of the dead, as it says, which is who? Yeah, everybody else that didn't get raised in the first resurrection. That's the rest of the dead. The rest of the dead aren't getting raised then. They have no part of the first resurrection. So they're going to have no part, that they don't have a part of the resurrection of Jesus because they haven't accepted it. They're not going to have a part of the rapture because they haven't accepted Jesus. They're not going to have a part of the resurrection of the martyrs at the end of the tribulation because they haven't been accepted Jesus and they haven't been killed for Jesus. Okay? So, yeah. Yes.
Way to go, Lord.
What about the people that are cremated and they don't have a body anymore?
That's a very good question. That's why there are some denominations that do not believe in cremation. They say you can't be cremated. Because if you're cremated, then you can't be resurrected with your body. All right? No, there's nothing that says cremation is a man-made means of disposal of the body. It gained prominence in about the 3rd or 4th century. It really started getting big. Yeah, but God can take those ashes and make the flesh and blood come back, just like He can for people who have been dead for a couple of thousand years and laying in the ground, and they've nothing but, even bones are gone, or a lot of the bones are gone. So God can bring that back. Yeah. 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 Yeah, cremated and. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's all because those people that died in 9/11, those ones that were close to the bottom when the tower fell, those people were just obliterated. You know, there's no sign of them anywhere. Okay? Yeah, the people on the plain were even worse on that. Okay? So the rest of the dead don't have a part in this first resurrection. Okay? That means the rest of the dead, they're not blessed. Okay? They haven't been blessed. They are under the power of the second death. Those who are raised in the first resurrection, remember, are not, the second death has no power over them. So these people who remain that were dead, these people who are raising, they are going to be under the power of the second death. We're gonna look at that too, okay? Okay? These people are without privilege. And I know that that's a big key word with every buzzword for everybody now, that all these people have, white people have privilege, and these people have privilege, and this people have privilege. Well, it doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter anything else. When you get raised in the rapture or get raised in the first resurrection, you've got privilege. Okay? The other people don't. Okay? So the only privilege is going to be during that time is those who were raised in the first resurrection and those who were not, the rest of the dead. Okay? Now, Jesus describes two resurrections. And he describes those two resurrections in John 5:28 and 29. Let's look at what it says. It says, "Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice." Okay? All that are in the grave is who? Dead. Okay? "And shall come forth." Meaning, coming out of the grave. Okay? "They that have done good unto the resurrection of life. They that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation." Two resurrections. Everybody's going to be resurrected. But these two resurrections are going to be separated by 1,000 years. Okay? The rest of the dead, they're not given their resurrected bodies until the millennium is over. Yes, John. Well, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, it's after the first resurrection. After the first resurrection, end of the first resurrection will be at the end of the tribulation. So then that'll be 1,000 years from that time. Now, the rapture is at the beginning of the tribulation, okay, which is one of the stages of the first resurrection. The second stage, or the third stage, the last stage of the first resurrection, is the resurrection of the martyrs at the end of the tribulation period. That then completes the first resurrection. The second resurrection is going to happen 1,000 years later at the end of the millennium. All right? That doesn't come in stages. That's all at once. All right? So if the first resurrection is a singular event, meaning it doesn't come in stages, doesn't come in the different stages that we just talked about, this is a good talking point that some people use to discuss the post-tribulation rapture. Remember when we first started this, we were talking about the different beliefs in the rapture. Pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, post-tribulation. Some people believe, most of us I'm sure believe, that the rapture is going to occur at the beginning of the tribulation. Antichrist makes himself known, the church is raptured. Okay? This ushers in the Great Tribulation, the 7-year period of tribulation. Okay? After which, okay, the second belief is mid-tribulation. Mid-tribulation is that Christians are going to have to go through the first 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. But the first 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation aren't going to be that bad. Relative peace. Still under the control of Antichrist, but it's relative peace during that period of time. Yeah. Well, no, it's even going to be better than, now we've got turmoil everywhere. Right? Post-tribulation rapture is saying that we got to go through the entire tribulation, then at the entire tribulation, then we're raptured, which makes absolutely no sense. Because why would God call us out, rapture us out, only for us to immediately come right back down? Doesn't make any sense. Okay? So, but they will use this by saying that the first resurrection is a singular event. By saying it is a singular event, it implies that all saints receive their bodies at the same time. Okay? But as we just saw, the first resurrection comes in stages. It's not a singular event, but an order of event. Okay? All right. Let's look at Revelation 20, verses 7 and 8. And when the 1,000 years are expired. All right, yes.
The people that are going to be with Jesus and stuff are going to get the new body.
Uh-huh.
Are the people that are going to be resurrected at the end of that and are going to go to the lake fire, are they going to receive a new body or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. They're going to get a body as well. Yeah. All right. Let's look at Revelation 27 and 8. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Okay? The number that Satan gathers is as the sands of the sea. All right? A lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. This is after the 1,000 years. Yeah. They're going, for 1,000 years, Jesus reigns on the earth. Jesus reigns supreme. Okay? Remember, during this time, Satan is bound and is inactive. Okay? So Satan is not there. He's not around to do any of these things. He's not around to deceive people. He's not, yes. No, you will not die during that 1,000 years.
How can somebody be with Jesus for 1,000 years and still? There are a lot of hard-headed people.
Even though Satan was bound and inactive, would there still be sin?
No, because Satan's not here. Satan's not there to...
So there won't be any sin?
Yeah, there won't be any sin during that period of time. That's why Satan has to be released for the period of time, for the season. Okay? Huh? Doesn't say how long the season is. It just says for a season. All right? It could be a while. It may not be very long. Okay? But consider this. During that 1,000 years, how many people are going to be born? Yeah. People are still going to have, they're still going to have reproduce. There's going to be children that are born. Those children are going to live for the remainder of the 1,000 years. So all these people are going to be on the earth. Well, how are we going to hold them on this earth? Well, God can do it, all right? That comes a little bit later on. A new heaven and a new earth comes a little later on in the next chapter. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, overpopulation is not going to be a problem.
Well, actually, the figure, the reproduction for 1,000 years, that isn't going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what we've already gone through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's already a, because you're looking at all the people who have ever died in Christ and all the people who are Christian now. And all, we're talking about billions or hundreds of billions of people. Yes. Yeah. We're going to be on earth that 1,000 years. Okay? Now, after the 1,000 years, Satan is released. Okay? And when he gets released, he is going to successfully organize many on earth to rebel against God. Okay? Why? Huh? Now, Jesus is still going to be around, but Satan's got to be released. Yes. Okay. All right. This is going to demonstrate something. It's going to demonstrate man's rebellion put in there his rebellion against God. Okay. Yeah. Outward conformity to Jesus' rule will be, basically it's going to be required during his reign. Right? Outwardly, everybody's going to conform to the rules. Jesus is going to be there. There's nothing to convince them to do otherwise. But man, at his heart, rebels against God. Okay? So, inward embracing of his lordship, the lordship of Jesus, is still going to be an individual decision. Yeah, you're still going to have free will. And then after that 1,000 years, you see, for 1,000 years you don't have Satan. So basically your free will, even though you've got free will, you don't know any different. All you know is the peace and the wonderfulness that Jesus is giving. Now Satan has to be released. There's going to be people that are born during that period of time that have never heard about Satan. Don't know anything about Satan. Now he's got to be released so that he can still roam the earth, so people can have that true free will to make their own choice as to what they're going to do. Okay? Yes? Well, you have free will. You just don't know. You just don't know any different. Okay. No, it kind of limits your free will. But Satan has to be released in order for the true, complete free will to be expressed through man. Okay. But we also see a very important reason for God, for the millennial kingdom and the final rebellion. Okay? What is the biggest thing when it comes to sin? What do people say about sin? Not my fault. Yeah. Okay? Not my fault. That's one of. Most people are going to, it's the same thing that they do in psychology. It's called nature versus nurture. Nature versus nurture. Okay? People now will claim that sin is a product of their environment. Okay? Our sinful condition is because of our environment. That's why we sin, is because of our environment.
We made it this way. Well, we made the environment.
That's true. And I don't mean just the weather, I just mean the attitude that people have. Okay? But during the millennial kingdom, it's going to be 1,000 years of a perfect environment. You see, everything's going to be perfect during that period of time. And at the end, when Satan comes back, people will still rebel against God. People are still going to rebel against God. Now, yes.
Think about it. The devil's going to fight the final war with God people.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody in that millennial reign will be God's people.
Yes.
And are we the only people left over? So it has to be God's people to fight against God's people.
Well, now, is it because Satan is going to... Remember, Satan is not just released for just a second. He's released for a season. We don't know how long that season is, but a season that he is released, it's going to be... he's going to be able to lead people astray. Which shows us something very powerful on this. Number one, not only is Satan a liar, which we know he is, he's a liar and the father of lies. He's a good liar. Right? But what it more powerfully demonstrates is that the problem isn't as much with Satan as it is with us. Because if we can spend 1,000 years in the presence of Jesus, in the presence of Christ, in a perfect environment, during the millennial reign, and then still turn our backs on God and rebel against God, that problem's us. Okay? Yeah. The tribulation, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We have to go back like the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
That God always brought them a victor, a hero, got them out of their problems,
Yeah.
and what happened?
They turn right around and rebel against him again.
That's kind of showing me this is what it's going to be
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Hey, look at it. When Moses led the people out of Egypt, they saw the Red Sea part. They saw the pillar of fire by day, or pillar of smoke by day and the pillar of fire by night. They see all of this stuff. Then Moses goes on the mountain for 40 days and they build a golden calf, another god. It didn't even take them very long to rebel against God. So the problem is that, yes, Satan is a part of the problem. Satan is the one that tries to lead us astray, just like he did with Eve in the garden. But Satan did not make Eve make that choice. She did it herself. So the problem isn't as much with Satan as it is with us. Okay? The problem is not in our environment. It is apart from the grace of God, which we have, only evil and enmity with God remains at the heart of man. When you don't have the grace of God in your heart, when you reject the grace of God in your heart, only evil remains. Okay? Now, Satan is going to gather them together. It says, gather them together to battle. Who's the them? Who is the them? Yeah, those are the ones who survived the Great Tribulation and their descendants. Right? As I said before, infants that were born during the millennium reign, they're going to live till the end of it. Okay? But they're not going to have to, during this millennial reign of Christ, during the time that Christ is here on earth and reigning supreme, people aren't going to have to make the choice as to whether to serve God or Satan. They're not going to have to make that choice. Okay? Because there is no Satan for them to serve. So they're not going to have to do that. So now Satan is released, and now they have a choice. And some will choose Satan. As hard as that is to believe, some are still going to choose Satan. Now, it talks about Gog and Magog, and I know there's been a lot of talk about Gog and Magog. I've seen a lot of different commentaries, a lot of different preachers say a lot of different things about Gog and Magog, who Gog and Magog is. All right? Gog and Magog, autocorrect, I hate that one does that. Gog and Magog are prophetic enemies of Israel in Ezekiel 38 and 39. All right? That's not supposed to be God and Magog. It's supposed to be Gog and Magog, okay? So, are these actual places? All right? In Ezekiel, Gog and Magog, Gog was the ruler of Magog. All right? So, it was an actual place. Now, there are people that say that this is going to, the biggest one I've heard is Russia. Russia. You know, and that was back when Russia was the big superpower that it used to be. All right? More recently, I've heard a lot of people say that it's China, different things like that. This is what Gog and Magog is. All right? But when you think about it, when you go back and look at this is after the millennium. Right? And after the millennium, there's not going to be Russia. There's not going to be China. There's not going to be all of these places. The only nation during the millennium is Israel. That's it. So John seems to borrow this term and uses it as a symbol. Okay? It's a symbol of the enemy of God, is what he's talking about. Now, Revelation 29 and 10. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city is what? Jerusalem. Yeah. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. This battle is over before it even begins. They gather around, and it just, God just sends fire down and gets rid of them. This battle never had a chance. All right? Now, it's unclear if saints here refers to the glorified saints, all right, which would be those who have died in Christ, those who were raptured, those are the glorified saints, or is it the earth inhabitants that were born and came through during the millennium, okay? But the strategy of the satanic army is very, very, very clear. That is to destroy God's people and Jerusalem. Now, when we get right down to it, we really shouldn't even call this a final battle. Okay? I said the fight's over before it even begins. It doesn't even get started. Here, during this, after Satan has convinced all these people to rebel, they go against the saints, they go against Jerusalem, and now God finally deals with the devil and his followers forever. Now he takes care of it. Satan is cast into the lake of fire. This is where the beast and the false prophet are at. Okay? Now there, they are tormented forever, is what it tells us. Yeah. Is this really an eternal punishment? Okay. All right. Yeah, it is. It is. Now, the Greek that they use for the eternal punishment here is aeonos ton aeonon. That means to the ages of the ages. That's the literal translation of it. Okay? To the ages of the ages. That means a long time. Okay? There's no way possible in Greek to state this more emphatically about everlasting punishment than to say ages to the ages of the ages. Okay? That's pretty. Yeah. It's just the ages of the ages. It's forever. Yeah. Now get this. Torment will be day and night. It was going to be day and night. There's not going to be any break in there. It's not going to be 9 to 5 and then they're going to stop. You know. No, it's going to be day and night. And it is going to last to the ages of ages. Yeah, and you can't die and get away from it. It's there. Okay? All right. Here's what we've all been waiting for. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. And I saw a great white throne and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. The great white throne. Okay. Now, the throne is great because it's great in status, it's great in power, it's great in authority. And it is white in purity and holiness. And it is a throne because it denotes kingly sovereignty. Who is it that sits on the throne? Okay. God, okay. John 5:22-27 suggests that the judge is Jesus. All right? More than likely, the one sitting on this throne is the fullness of the triune God. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit together. Okay? Now, earth and heaven flee from this throne. What does that mean? Yeah. There's no hiding from this throne. No matter where you go, you can't hide from it. It's going to be there. No one can escape the judgment that it represents. Now, who's going to be at the great white throne judgment? What have you heard before? Everybody stands before the great white throne judgment. Eh? Is that what everybody's kind of heard as they go along? Okay? Hold on, I'm going to bust your bubble again. All right? Most biblical scholars now believe that Christians will not be a part of the great white throne judgment. They're never going to appear before the great white throne. Why? Okay? Okay? Yeah. Yeah. It's not because they can hide from it. It's just that Christians, we are spared because our sins are already judged in Jesus at the cross. We don't escape God's judgment. We just have that judgment satisfied in Jesus. Okay? But Christians will have to stand before another throne. We don't get away from not standing before a throne. Okay? 2 Corinthians 5:10 says, "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body, according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad." Okay? So we're going to have to give an account for what we've done. Yeah. We're going to have to give an account. This judgment is a judgment of the works of the believer. Okay? Everything that we've done, all that we have done is going to be judged. Everything that we judge. Okay? More importantly than that, our motives are going to be judged as well.
Why are we going to be judged for something that he's already forgiven and forgotten a long time ago? Does this mean that if he says you did this, you did that, and you sin and you're gone,
I thought this means of all the things that
fall
we did.
immediately?
I'm thinking the works that we did. What
Okay.
we're doing for God, not what we
All right.
our sins. All the works that we've done for God. Well, what have we done for Him?
Okay? And you're both right. All right? And I'm going to show you how in just a second. We may go a little over tonight, so Paul presents the same idea in 1 Corinthians 3:12-15. This basically is saying that we're going to be tested by fire. Okay? Our motives are going to be tested, what we do, and our motives are going to be tested. This is where a lot of these prosperity preachers are going to have some problems because their motives are what? To gain money. Okay? Not to bring people to Christ. Their motive is to get money. And that, even though they may be doing what they consider and what may look like the work of Christ and the work for Christ, their motives are going to be seen in all of this and what they're doing. So we will be tested by fire. This purifying fire of God will burn up what was not of Him. Okay? Now, we're not going to be punished for what was not done rightly. Okay? We're thinking we're going to get the judgment on this, but we're not going to be punished for the things that we didn't do right.
We're going to get a cleansing.
Yes. That's basically it. Okay? What we didn't do right is going to be burned up as if we never did them. All right? This is a purifying process, is what it is. Then, after that happens, then we're going to be rewarded for what remains. Even at the little bitty. Even at the little bitty. Now, some people are going to get to heaven thinking that they've done great things for God. But when they stand before this judgment, they're going to find out, man, I didn't really do anything at all. Okay? So, we are going, as Christians, we are still going to have to stand in judgment. But that judgment is not that we are standing in, is not a judgment for punishment. It is a judgment for reward of what we did. The bad things, the things that are there that don't line up with God, those things are going to be burnt away. It's a purification process. Okay? It's an I told you so kind of process. This is actually, this kind of theory, this is actually where some of the idea, and not strictly this, but there's other things that, this is some of the idea of where purgatory comes from. Okay? That you're going to have the things that weren't of Christ burnt away out of your life, or out of there. Okay? All right. Revelation 20:12-13. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged out of those things which were written in these books according to their works. And here's what Brother Gilmore was saying earlier. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged every man according to their works. All right? This is not a trial. Okay? Yeah. It's not a trial. This is a sentencing for someone that's already been condemned. All right? Yeah. But the thing about it is, the book of life is there. What do we know is the book of life? That's where Christians are written down. Hey? This shows that God is still giving one last opportunity, making absolutely sure their name's not there. So one final act of grace of God to say, okay, I'm going to look one more time to make sure. Okay? Because sentencing is not a trial, then those who stand before the throne will have nothing to say. They're going to have absolutely nothing to say. They won't be able to say anything. Okay? A lot of people that think that when they get there, they're going to tell God a thing or two. Well, I'm going to give God an earful when I get there. Okay. There was a letter written to Dear Abby. Y'all remember Dear Abby? Some of y'all remember Dear Abby. Okay. Dear Abby on this, huh? Says this was written some years ago. It says, Dear Abby, I am troubled with something a reader wrote. What right do we mortals have to demand an explanation from God? Abby, that writer has never known the gut-wrenching pain of losing a child. God didn't answer my prayers, and I resent being told I have no right to question God. If there is a God, and if I ever get to meet him face to face, you can bet your life I will have plenty of whys for him to answer. I want to know why my little girl died and why that drunk was allowed to go on living. I love her more than my life, and I miss her so. I am mad that I am having to live in a world where she no longer lives, and I want to know why. Why shouldn't I have the right to ask God? Okay? Aren't we supposedly created in his image? If so, surely he has a heart and soul capable of hurting just as I hurt. Why would he not expect to be questioned if he has anything to do with miracles? I don't fear the Lord, and I don't fear hell either. I know what hell is like. I've already been there since the day of my precious daughter was killed. Please sign me a bereaved mother. Okay? There's not going to be any criticism of God on that day, guys. All right? No, we don't have the right to question God on stuff. We do. We question God, okay?
We're his children in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and this lady saying, what this lady shows is the arrogance of man. That we think that we can stand before God and say, okay, God, you got some explaining to do. And God says, no, I don't. Nope. There's not going to be anything said during that time. There's not going to be any criticism of God. You're not even going to be able to talk. People are going to see the righteousness of God. And, more importantly, they're going to see their own sin and their own rejection of him. Okay? It's to be judged every man according to his work. And if people are not listed in the book of life, each one will be judged according to his works. Those who come to God in faith, who refuse to come to God in faith, will be judged by their works. These are degrees of punishment according to their works. We find that in Matthew 11:20-24. Here's where they are sentenced to their specific eternal punishment. Right? So everybody's going to have an eternal punishment. Some of them are going to be more specific than others. Okay? Now it says the sea gave up the dead. Why does the sea give up the dead? And this is where cremation and all this other stuff comes from. Okay? This represents the place of unburied bodies. Okay? This is the time that, this is what that represents. The sea gave up his dead. Now the sea is going to give up the dead, but it represents a place where bodies, there's no burial place for them. Okay? And that includes cremated people, that includes all this other stuff. All right? Those who were lost, those who are who were disintegrated, blown up, all these other things. All right? All right, let's go into last part here. Revelation 20:14 and 15. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Here, the last echoes of sin are eliminated. Death is the result of sin. Okay? Hell is a result of death. Right? Agree with that? Hell is a result of death. Here, the last vestiges of sin's dominion are done away with. Now, when we talk about the lake of fire, that is what most people see as hell. When we talk about hell, this is what we think about. Most Christians think about is the lake of fire. But the Bible actually uses three main words to describe where the ungodly go. Right? The first one is the Hebrew word Sheol, which is the place of the dead. Okay? Now, in Hebrew writings, there is no specific or direct reference to any kind of torment or eternal happiness after death. All right? The Greek word that we see a lot of times for hell is Hades, which means the world beyond. Okay? It is generally the same idea as Sheol in Hebrew. It's the world beyond. There's no really direct reference to punishment. Okay. Revelation 9:1 speaks of the bottomless pit. Now, this bottomless pit is the prison for certain demons. And it is a part of the realm of the dead. Now, there's another word that is used. Anybody know what it is? No? I don't think so. Okay. It's all right. It is the Greek word Gehenna. Have you heard of it? Heard of Gehenna before? It comes from the Hebrew word Hinnom, which is the valley of Hinnom. Outside the walls of Jerusalem, there was a place that was there that was desecrated by the worshipers of Molech. And they would worship him and they would have human sacrifices to them. After that happened, outside of the walls became a garbage dump where trash was burned. This gives us the image, Gehenna, all right, gives us the image of smoldering fires and festering worms. This is a graphic and effective picture of the fate of the damned. This is the lake of fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Okay? This is where men will go if they reject God's salvation. Women too. I know we got to do this. Yeah. This is the second death. Okay? Just as there is a second and higher life after death, right? There is also a second and deeper hell after death. Okay. Now, after Christian life, there's no more death. Right? That's when we go to heaven. There's no more death in heaven. When people go to hell, Gehenna, there's no more life. Okay? They're going to be alive, yes. They're going to be tormented, yes. They're going to be tormented for to the ages of ages, for eternity. But they're not going to have a life like they knew life before. Okay? All right. That completes chapter 20. Next week we are going to get into the New Jerusalem, and then the new heaven and new earth, and that will get us to 21, and then chapter 22 is just the epilogue. So, any questions, comments, concerns, amens, oh me's? Made it through another one. We made it through another one. All right. Made it through another one. All right, then we're a little bit late, run a little bit long, but that's okay. All right. Pastor wants you to take us out.
All right. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you again for this lesson that we have learned and taught. Father, that we receive what the Spirit has to say. That, Father, there's a lot of this that has been known